Hey, welcome, and thanks for coming for this Getting Started with Booster series. In this series, we'll be taking a look at how to create your first application with Booster and how to start walking through your first steps. As a quick introduction into the Booster framework, it is a framework to run your projects in the cloud very easily. You don't have to know a lot about servers, databases, like more like deep stuff in the cloud like queues or architecting your resources. Like there's a lot of stuff going on in the cloud and it can be daunting at sometimes. But what's great about Booster is that it relieves you from that effort. You don't have to be thinking about that. Also, another cool thing about Booster is that, yeah, of course, when I said that you can run stuff on the cloud, you might be thinking, okay, so this might cost me money, right? But what's great is that Booster uses on-demand resources. Like some people call these kind of resources serverless. But what's happening actually is that if you're not using that resource, for example, you're not using your application, you're not having like end users coming into your website that's using this application, you are not paying for anything. As they say, you don't pay for idling because your system is idle and you don't have to pay for that. So Booster takes care of that, so it happens. And what's great about that is that in this guide we will be using AWS for the deployment. And if this is your first time creating an AWS account, you have a year or of the free tier, as they call it. So, like, even if you have usage of your app, it will be free for you. Another thing about Booster is that it's relatively different to use. When you're working with typical web apps, if you have a little bit of experience on that, you generally are like putting stuff into a database, reading it, then changing that stuff. You are creating endpoints. You are doing like a lot of things in a very somewhat traditional way. But Booster changes the way that we work, and and when we work with Booster, we work thinking in a more like real life way somehow. We're not thinking about very deep technical stuff like queues or databases. We're rather using concepts like events, which we have in real life, or commands when we say an order to someone and they say, hey, go and do this, and that will be a command. But we'll take a look at that more in depth. So in this series, just to be a bit on the same page with the context of the series, we will be creating a bank account application. Why a bank account application? That's kind of boring, because a bank account is it's very close to this natural event application that we know. So when we're using a bank account, like in the ATM, or we go in our mobile app and we see our bank account, we actually have a lot of events going on there. We have like deposits, like money deposited, that will be an event, or withdrawals, that also could be an event. And it's very cool to start with that because it gives you like a very close example to real life. Regarding like the knowledge, there's not really that much deep knowledge required. Of course, you should be know at least some of programming, but if you know about the following concepts, it will be much easier for you. For example, if you have knowledge of the language TypeScript, which if you, for example, have been doing like some JavaScript development, then you probably already know about it. And if not, it's very close to JavaScript or even Java or like all the mainstream languages. If you know about classes and object-oriented programming, it will be easier for you to grasp the concepts. Also about the reduce concept, like the array reduce method, when you combine different elements from the array. Also, if you have like basic knowledge about GraphQL, if you know what's a mutation or what's a query or a subscription, you don't have to get really deep into GraphQL, like how to implement this in your server or how to make like super advanced queries, combining stuff. No, just if you know a little bit about mutations, queries, and subscriptions, which is something that you can learn relatively easily, it will be cool. But still, we'll get this covered. And it will be nice if you're not afraid of the command line, because Booster uses a lot the command line, but in a very easy way, as you'll see. So these are the 5 concepts that it will be cool if you knew. But still, again, we're gonna be touching them throughout the course in a very slow pace, so everything is clear. And of course, you can just drop a comment below if you're not sure about anything, and we'll just answer here. Also, for deploying our project, we're gonna be using AWS. At the time of recording this video, Booster doesn't support local deployment, but if you happen to be a traveler from the future, feel free to ignore everything related to AWS in this video series and just use the local provider. When you are using Booster, you might be thinking, okay, so if the videos show me stuff about AWS and then they're telling me also to use the local provider, stuff might be different. Actually, no. Like Booster abstracts or removes you from the hassle of thinking about this stuff, and it's just like a configuration parameter. You just, instead of saying AWS at some point, you will say just local, and everything will work in the same way, except that you will have your application, instead of deploying in the Amazon Web Services cloud, you will have deployed it in your local computer. So, as I said, Booster resources are eligible for the free tier. So if this is your first year using AWS, you won't be paying anything. Still, if that's not the case, like the resources that Booster use are very, very cheap. Like how cheap? When I say cheap, I mean that for paying $1, you should be having at least 1 million requests. Regarding this, please always check your alarms, your AWS alarms, and take care of that. But if you're just following the tutorial and just deploying your app, testing it a little bit, and then destroying it, which will show how, you'll mostly pay like very few cents. Or even if you are in a free tier, you won't be paying anything. So that's it. So if you are excited as I am, I hope that you stay tuned for the next video. So next video we'll be showing how to install Booster, and we'll be talking a little bit about how to set up your machine for working with it.